Hey everybody, welcome to another Thursday night. Glad you guys can be with us. And those of you watching the replay, let me know that you're watching the replay. Give me a hashtag live, hashtag replay in the comment section when you watch it. I appreciate it. So guys, last week, we had a week off. Hope you had the time to review some of the other sessions that we had. They're all out there on the Facebook group or on the YouTube page. So hopefully you had a chance to review that. Also dive into some of the guides if you haven't already. So the last time we talked about are you ready for retirement overall? We kind of kicked off that retirement discussion. We went into a lot of different things, a kind of overview of a lot of different aspects, the three threes, the three different buckets, the three different phases. Those are all great. And I cannot wait to dive into those with you guys. So what we're going to do over the next several sessions, we're going to break into a lot of those different topics that we talked about in that Are You Ready for Retirement? The accumulation phase, the disbursement phase, the different buckets, the different phases, all that kind of stuff, the needs, wants, nice to have. So we're going to dive deeper into that. Next week, as a little teaser, before we dive into some of those extra things, we're going to talk about investments specifically. So we're going to talk about investments in general, and then also investments of how they relate to retirement. So you can use it for general investing and for retirement. We'll talk about both of those. We'll get into different topics as far as different vehicles, pros and cons of different ones, risks of different ones, and those kind of things. So looking forward to next week. That's a great, exciting topic that I love talking about. So this week we're going to talk about retirement checklist and blunders, right? So this retirement checklist is just kind of a precursor to as you're in pre-retirement stages, really before 10 years, 5 years, 1 years before, but also a little bit before that. It's good to know, no matter what age you are, to know these things so you can start be thinking about them, be planning with. The earlier you start, the better, right? So ideally, when you start planning for retirement, it'd be the first time you get a paycheck. I love getting people that are young and come out of the gates right away, because it just spreads it out. It's much easier. You don't have to quite stress yourself out and sacrifice as much to save up. But no matter what age you're at, whether you're 19 or whether you're 55 or beyond, you still need to have a plan. And obviously, we're going to adapt that plan based on your age, circumstances, where you need to go, those kind of things, right? And then some other things that have happened. The pandemic kind of threw a wrench in the works for some people's retirement, whether it was job loss or job being paused or the job just changing, hours changing, pay changing, layoffs. And then, of course, the market crashes. We're going to talk a lot more about the market crash, in the flexing of the market in regards to the fluctuations, how you can hedge your risk, if I should say, against that, right? There's things that we can do to hedge that a little bit, to get rid of some of the volatility, to make that roller coaster ride a little bit smoother. So there's always going to be life events, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's personal things. No matter, you got to plan for the unknown, and that's part of the planning process as well. All right. And when you get close to retirement, you may not have as much control of the then. Circumstances may change. You may have to work a few years longer. Maybe you're beneficial and you can retire a little bit early, whatever that may mean. Life's going to throw curveballs at times. You just got to be ready for that. So we got to be able to plan for that. Plan for the unknown so you can invest in what is known. So that's part of the plan and part of the picture. So let me share my screen here, and we're going to go through some of this. Like I normally do, I'm going to put this out on the, let me get to my thing here. Here we go. I'll put it out in the group under the guides. So you guys can have this afterwards. It'll be there shortly after the broadcast. All right, so let's dive in a little bit. First, we'll talk about some of the checklist items, and then we'll get into the blunders. And the blunders are kind of fun to talk about, but not so fun to experience, right? So let's talk about the 10 years out, right? Retirement is on your horizon, but you're starting to think about it a little bit. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really start thinking about their retirement until they're about 10, 15 years out. But like I said, no matter where you're at, you still got to have a plan in place, right? So there's other things going on in your life. You have your family, you have your job, maybe grandkids, renovations in your house, a lot of different things going on. And hopefully you have a plan in place, or working with someone that can help you put that plan in place and adapt as your life changes. I do that a lot. I get to know people as they're going through their life changes, and we just adjust the plans accordingly. I'm not going to get a ton into the COVID pandemic things, but just to say, because we're going to talk about this separately another day, but there was the CARES Act, and then there's a new Secure Act that came out that is impacting retirement planning. Some of it changed how much and when you can take from a 401k loan, which I hate people to do unless it's a last ditch sort effort. That's a last resort to take a loan out of a 401k or any of your security for your retirement, right? But that the coronavirus aid relief and economic security package, and then the Secure Act came out, and now there's a 2.0 of the Secure Act. We're actually going to talk about that on another session because it does change things like RMDs, the required minimum distributions, and when you have to take those. And it's a couple other things about things being taxed and like I said, withdrawals on the 401ks. If you had to take a 401k loan, please plan on paying that back as fast as possible so you can make your money start working for you again, because when that money's out of the accounts, whether you took it from your 401k or from an investment account, that money's not working for you anymore, and it has a compounding effect of getting behind, right? All right, so this is all in the document there. You can read through that. We'll dig into the Secure Act and the CARES Act a little bit more later on. All right, so one thing I want to, while I'm touching on 401ks, you may or may not have seen a video that I put out there. Highly recommend just contributing to your 401ks up to the employer match. That's free money. You can't beat the returns on that. Sometimes your employers will meet or match 100% up to a certain percentage or 50% up to a certain percentage. A lot of times it's like up to 6%. So once you put in your 6% of your paycheck, and that's what they're matching, stop. Don't put any more into that. Because the rest of that money, I want you to still invest it. If you're able to invest more than the 6%, that is fantastic. But you can put your money in other places that's going to work much better for you. As we touched on earlier in one of the sessions about the 401ks, they're riddled with fees, and you can only get into mutual funds for the most part. There's much better performing assets and investments that you can get into. So contribute up to the match. Nothing more, and then we're going to want you to put it into better performing options. Again, happy to help in that scenario. During the pandemic, you had a stimulus check to come out. I know that's a little past, you probably don't have that anymore, but maybe you saved that money, or maybe you started contributing a little more to your retirement plan. If you're 50 years or older, you can start stashing what they call catch-up funds into your 401ks and your IRAs. Like I said, if you're already putting in the up to the match, then I don't want you to do it in the 401k. I'd rather you do it in an IRA, and then some other vehicles beyond that, right? So if you're at that stage, 50 or older, you can put in those catch-up contributions, and they can help out as you're trying to make up ground if you need to for your retirement accounts. One thing in 401ks as well, this really doesn't go just for 10 years out, but really for anybody. A lot of times now in 401ks, you can move part of your money into a Roth portion of a 401k. So you have a traditional and a Roth. You can actually contribute to both, but you may want to start contributing some to the Roth component of it. And the reason being is that money is tax free when you get out of when you start taking cash out in retirement, whereas traditional is not. In another session, we'll talk a lot more about distributions, taxation on funds, when to take them, and the effects. But you need to plan for some of this ahead of time and know what you're getting into. Not all 401ks, have a Roth option, but more and more these days are. So you can look into that with your employer if you have a 401k or a 401(b). The thing there, though, is if you start putting money into a Roth through a 401k, the money that goes in from you goes into that Roth, but the matching funds go into the traditional. They're not allowed to put money into the Roth portion of that for you. So something to think about, something to look into. All right. Other things I want you to start thinking about, if you don't do this already, is contribute to a health savings account if they're available to you. Now, the health savings account, or HSAs, are different than the flexible spending accounts, FSAs, that employers offer. And the health savings accounts are only available for high deductible plans. And if you sit down and do the math, for the most part, for about 80 to 90% of the people, those high deductible plans work out great, and they give you access to the health savings account, which are fantastic. And here's why. A lot of times employers will put a little bit money toward the HSA as well. But in that HSA, you can bank that money up. It's not like an FSA where you have to use the money at the end of the year. So you're out there frantically spending the money so you don't lose it. On an HSA, you can save that money, roll it over, and build up the value over time. And this is tax sheltered as well. And then you can pay your medical bills out of there, and that's tax free. So you're kind of getting and I'll talk about a triple hit here in a minute, a double hit right out of the gates, because it's taken out of your paycheck pre-tax, and then you can spend it pre-tax if it's going toward medical things. Also, part of your HSA, you can invest. Most HSAs have an investment side of it, so you can move money in there and split out. Hey, I want this much for medical at all times, but I want to put the remaining in an investment account and make that money work for you. And here's the other benefit of this. If you can, and you can afford to pay your medical bills outside of the HSA and save that money, you're getting a triple benefit, because you're putting it in tax-free. If you have to spend at times, you can put it, take it out for tax-free, but also in retirement, you can use this towards your medical bills in retirement, save up a nice little nest egg. We talked about those no-go years, and as you start slowing down, your medical costs go up. If you've built money up in the HSA, that could be hugely beneficial, and it's taken out tax-free, and you could have been investing it all along. We'll talk a little bit more about like long-term care and all those kind of things in another session, but that's a great thing if you have access to it. As you're entering into that phase, hopefully by this point, you've already paid off your high interest debt. We already had that debt session about being mindful of debt and how to get out of debt. Hopefully you're already down and you got rid of all those credit cards and installment loans and whatnot, and you're debt free, maybe other than your mortgage. But if not, get those debts taken care of. If you go into retirement with debts, that just means you have to save even more, and it puts more of a stress on your income stream in retirement versus saving for retirement to enjoy. You're still paying out debt. So obviously life happens in their circumstances, but you need to get in gangbusters mode if you have not already paid down those debts. Whether it's credit cards, installment loans, those Parent Plus loans for you had a kid in college, you got those Parent Plus loans, pay those down. Although, excuse me. And one little stat there is there 1/4 of retirees say that they had debt going into retirement and it made it more difficult for them to live. That goes into that distribution phase that we talked about. We have to plan for that. So if you sit down and do planning, that's one aspect of it. Now, I'm going to talk about the mortgages here. I'm going to kind of jump ahead for a sec. We talked about mortgages in the past. That should be the last thing you pay off. But there's pros and cons. If you don't pay off your mortgage, if you have all these other high interest rate debts out there, you pay off those first. The mortgage, so you get some tax deductions out of that. Normally they're going to be a lower interest rate. You should attack that first. Do not take money out of your retirements or take away from your retirement savings to pay off your mortgage. It's not generally a good idea. Although the goal is to have your debt paid off as well as your mortgage paid off when you get to retirement. However, that goes into start crunching some numbers and where the benefits are, because at some point, especially when you get your debt paid off of, we can crunch numbers to see when it's beneficial to pay down the mortgage and when it's beneficial to sock more into retirement savings, and try to balance that out with the investment returns, the rate of returns, and then what your interest rate is on the mortgage. We can figure that out. All right, so a little tidbit there about mortgages. Create and/or update your estate plan. A huge part of retirement is estate planning. There's a lot of different laws and things that have changed over the years. You have wills and you have trust. And I can tell you it's a lot better to get a trust versus a will. We'll probably have a session on estate planning a little bit later on, but just a little precursor to that. Even if you have a will, your money and your belongings still have to go through probate court. Even though you have a will, that will just says what your will is, what you want to do with it. You still have to have your heirs and the people that are left behind still have to deal with probate. If you have a trust put in, it's a little more expensive up front to do a trust, but it's going to save you on the back end, or save your estate on the back end. Because guess what? Going through all that probate, the courts and the filing fees, and probably dealing with attorney, then you're going to either pay it then or pay it now. It's going to make life a lot easier for people you're passing your estate down to if you have a trust. It also gives you a lot of different protections and more control over what happens. So more on that later. Maybe I'll even get a guest speaker to come on and talk about estate planning. I have a couple different partners in estate planning. So if you haven't done that already, you need to be thinking about that. Also, with that, make sure your life insurance and all your beneficiaries are up to date. We're going to have a whole section on life insurance and other insurances and how that plays into financial planning and retirement planning. It does have a factor. Rebalancing your portfolio. You should be doing this on a regular basis. If you can read through that out on when I post it out on the site. All right, 5 years until retirement. So at this stage, what I'm saying up top here, it's not too soon to start thinking about your expenses and your budget in retirement now, right? You got to figure that out. If you don't know what you're like in the add-on plans that you can get with Medicare as well, and I'll probably of the pension, decide what to do with the money in your current 401k. I'm going to tell you right now, if it's in a current 401k, you want to move it out. We can roll it into other investment vehicles that you're not paying those high fees from. There are also some tax things you can do. We'll talk about this later too. It's called Roth conversions. When you move money out of a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA, take advantage of tax-free disbursements with the Roth. But there's tax implications of that when you do it. So you got to be thinking about that as well. And you're really going to start simplifying your finances overall. You're starting to form that retirement paycheck, if you will, where your money's coming from. So you're going to be taking an inventory of where all those funds are at, and obviously your planner is going to be helping you out with that as well. One thing, this sounds funny, but you can go to the missingmoney.com or unclaimed.org. Make sure you haven't forgotten about any old 401ks or funds you might have had from a former employer. You just never know. There's a tremendous amount of money that's sitting out there unclaimed that people forgot about, old past plans or 401ks. So check that out. And of course, if you've decided on a retirement destination, start looking into it. Get the local paper, do research, ask around, visit, and do your research there. Come up with a plan for charitable giving. Charitable giving has a place in your retirement if you have enough money, and that can play into your taxes as well. So think about charities that maybe you already are passionate about that you want to start giving to, and that can factor in. You can work with planner to figure out when and how much and what the impact that has on your taxes in retirement. All right. We already talked about when to apply for Social Security. There is a Social Security optimization, and timing can be crucial. It can make a huge difference of your lifetime benefits. So every year that you delay, you get an extra 8%. And like I said earlier, some people may say, well, I can't afford to wait. Well, if you have your retirement planning done right, then you can build that Social Security bridge, meaning you can use other funds to fund that. And if you're married and your spouse has benefits, one can claim and one may not have to. And the higher paying one with bigger benefits going to delay because you're going to have a bigger return down the road. So that's all factors into the plan and when to optimize. We're going to talk a lot more about the bucket system. I put this in here because at the 1 year mark, you're really going to start thinking about this. This goes into those 3 buckets we talked about on the overview the week before. The first bucket is the 1 to 2 years of your living expenses. Then the next bucket is your middle bucket. That could be anywhere from 3 to 5+ years out. That money goes into different kind of funds. And then the last bucket is for like the next 10 years out. As you need money, you can think about water pouring in from one bucket to the next. Money will shift from one bucket to the other based on needs, where you're at, and it maybe also to adjust for different market conditions that happen. So we'll dive into that a little bit more later on as well. All right, so let's dive real quick in. I know we're running a little bit long here. So a couple of the blunders I want to touch on. And now I'm going to run through these. You guys can certainly read them out on the document and hit me up if you have any questions. So let's dive into that. And, it's funny because I run across people that they've worked with a person in the past, or they got advice, and not every advisor talks about the different blunders. They're just kind of talking about the plan. But I fully believe in personal and holistic planning and giving you the total education and total picture. So some of these things you may or may not have heard of. Excuse me. So you got to do the diligence in the overall planning and make sure you account for anything. Basically, when people get hit with problems or hit with things in their retirement, like I underlined here, they didn't know what they didn't know. So they never saw the big risk coming. Well, part of that planning is let's get you in the know. Let's get you educated. Let's plan for the unknowns. Let's plan for the possibles. And if they don't happen, then great, you're better off, but let's plan for them. But also be educated. Some of these blunders are just not taking advantage of things. So the first blunder I see a lot, not giving Social Security enough respect. How and when you take your benefits are huge. I've already said this probably now 3 times, but it can make a big difference on your overall. Why not take advantage? You've been paying into Social Security all these years. Maximize it. Take advantage of it. It could add up to $100,000 in your lifetime benefits based on filing and when you file it. And like I said, hey, there's in 2019 there was a research report that came out and said 22% of retirees, the sample said they regretted claiming Social Security when they did. And I bet you that's a lot higher if people actually knew about Social Security optimization. It's a big thing. And no, Social Security is not going anywhere, right? Yes, it's in financial troubles. The government has to do something about it. The program may be tweaked a little bit, but I firmly believe, based on everything I know and everything I've been reading and people I've been talking to and looking at the studies, it should be fine. I think they're going to adjust maybe retirement ages, how much we pay in. There's caps on when you stop paying into Social Security every year. If you make over a certain amount, that's probably going to change. So it may change a little bit, but it's going to be there, and you need to plan for it. Another thing, blunder number 2, I touched on this earlier, ignoring sequence of returns risk. This is absolutely huge. So many people have never heard of this, and they don't account for it, but it's one of the biggest risks in retirement. We're going to spend part of the session talking about all the different risks in retirement planning, and then what are the different things you can do against them. Now, if you go back and watch the video or look at the guide from when we talked about, are you ready for retirement? I list the risks in there. One of them is sequence of returns risk. It's huge. It's one of the top ones, risk for retirement planning. And basically, to sum it up, if you have a market correction or downturns or a crash within the first 1 to 3 years before retirement and in the first 5 years or so of retirement, it may be unrecoverable. If you look at the stats, and in one of our sessions, I'll show you some samples and some graphs that show you if you took a hit in your portfolio that right before retirement or the first part of retirement, it has a much more bigger devastating effect than if you took it at the end. Your investments your balances are higher, and so the percentage losses are eaten away faster. And it's also, you just started taking money out of those accounts, so it has a compounding effect there as well. If you take that hit toward the end of retirement, it doesn't have nearly as big of a hit. So that's why when you're looking at the average, the rate of return over your portfolio of the life in retirement, it's a little bit more complex than that, because it's when those ups and downs happen. So you definitely got to think about this. That's why you make adjustments in your portfolio, as you get closer to retirement, and you put it in things that protect you against sequence of returns risk, right? There are things you can do to help avoid this, right? Part of it is the bucket system, but then what you put your money in is going to have a big effect. I can't stress this enough. Another blunder, not having a plan for future long-term care costs. Medical bills get expensive, and the older we get, the more expensive it gets, because there's more things that we need to do, right? We start falling apart. We start having more things, more medications, more doctor's visits. Our body starts breaking down. If you have to go in a nursing home or assisted living or anything like that, or have home care, it's really expensive, folks. And you either have to have that saved up in part of your retirement plan, or you have to have long-term care insurance. This could eat into your nest egg rapidly. So it's another blunder that people don't account for. Another blunder, leaving IRA or 401k money to your heirs. You know what? IRAs and 401ks were meant to be taken by and depleted for retirement by those people. The whole nature of it is set up that way. We're going to talk about RMDs, required minimum distributions, what that means. You have to start taking money out of those accounts, because the government wants their money, basically. You have to start taking money out. And like I've said, and I'll put this pitch in here, your retirement savings is not for your heirs and for your kids. That's what life insurance is for. It's pennies on the dollar compared to that. Why save up your whole life and have all this struggle of saving money? You should have enjoyment and happiness in your retirement. I know so many people, and you've seen the stats. I've seen the stats that people just suffer through retirement. They don't have fun. They're not enjoying their retirement. They worked all these years and they're not enjoying it because they're trying to leave a legacy. Well, there's other ways to leave a legacy that's pennies on the dollar, right? Enjoy your retirement. You earned it, right? Because guess what happens if you save all that money and you just leave it to your kids? Guess what? They're going to go take the vacations, have the boats, have all the fun, right? Why not you do that? They can plan for their retirement. You educate them and get them planning and saving up for their retirement. I'm not saying be mean. You can leave money to them, but there's ways to do it other than using your retirement money. There's also been some changes in tax laws and whatnot. We're going to touch on that later when we talk about disbursement phase of retirement. So those are the 4 big blunders. Let's do, leaving money in IRA or 401k and leaving them to heirs, not having future long-term care health costs accounted for, ignoring sequence of returns risks, and not giving enough credit to Social Security and factoring that in. It's huge. Those 4 things can be devastating to your plan, your retirement savings. We'll talk a little bit more. That's going to tie into the risks that we're going to talk about. We listed all those risks for retirement. This ties right into those blunders, go right into the risks. So guys, really looking forward to talking about and digging into investments. Like I said, next week we're going to talk about investments in general, what you can do with it just from a pure investing standpoint, and then well as how as that plays into your retirement planning as well. Let me stop sharing the screen here real quick. So that you can take that a lot of different ways, and we're going to give you some advice. And educate you a little bit. I shouldn't say advice because that's personal and that would be one-on-one. But give you some ideas and education on different things for investing and for retirement planning. Like I said, if you miss this, if you're watching this on replay or you miss it, you can go to my YouTube channel. You can watch it there. You can watch it in the Facebook group here. I'm also posting other videos out there on the YouTube channel, little shorts, little very short topical things. I will be doing some other videos outside of these lives that get posted up there as well to put some other different content out. So check that YouTube channel out, subscribe to it. And hit me up. Send me messages, make some comments in the comment section here, and whether or not you have questions or things that you want to see, that you want to do, with your retirement or financial savings. Let me know topics that you want to know about. I'll make sure we put a broadcast out about it. I really appreciate you guys' time. Let people know about the group. The more people we educate, the more people we can have having a great retirement. And just be financially educated, right? The Lord wants us to be able to be good stewards of His money, and do all things to glorify Him. Well, part of that, to be able to glorify Him, is taking care of our money, taking care of our families, planning it properly, and spending our money wisely, saving wisely, so we can glorify Him in everything that we do. And that may be being a blessing to someone else, right? And if you save properly, you're going to be a good steward, and you probably will hopefully have more margin. Remember, we talked about margin, having money left over from what you bring in, and maybe you can bless other people with that. If you have your financial plan in place, then maybe we can bless some other people in this world, because we certainly need as many blessings as we can get. There's a lot of people out there that need it. So guys, I appreciate your time. I look forward to next week, investments, and we'll catch you next week.